All right, so have you ever apologized before asking a question, hesitated to negotiate your salary, or even downplayed your accomplishments because you didn't want to seem pushy? According to our next guest, these seemingly small habits can have a big impact on a woman's career and ultimately her earning potential. So joining us today, Snowden McFall, professional speaker and executive coach. You've spent decades working specifically with women leaders, and you have found that some of that subconscious, the things that we're doing, how that can just chip away from our self-esteem and ultimately our paychecks.
It can hurt us in so many different ways. And it starts right out of the box when they're interviewing for jobs.
Wow, okay, because that's when you really have to sell yourself.
That's right. You got to put your best foot forward. You want to show that you're confident, that you're capable. But what happens too often is all too many women never negotiate a salary increase. You know, they offer one level, and usually there's some negotiation back and forth. 20% of women, 20 to 40% of women never even try to negotiate. And when they do, they ask for 30% less than men. 30%.
Wow, that is hard to imagine, because the thing is, I negotiate my own contract every year, and what I think about, I'm like, I don't know that if I said anything that they'd just be like, never mind, out the door.
Of course
I always
not.
feel like you
can
say a number, it's reasonable, if you can justify it, it's worth a conversation.
Absolutely, and at least you'll probably get something. The other thing that often happens is women don't ask for enough. I was coaching somebody yesterday who's renegotiating her contract, and she's taking on a whole bunch of new responsibilities, and I was telling her all the things she needs to ask for. A friend of mine a few years ago was trying to decide between two different national jobs. She was very competent. And I said, well, how about asking for a signing bonus? And she said, why should I do that? And I said, why shouldn't you? I said, every man that I know would ask for one. So, and she got it.
Yeah, it is hard to believe that women aren't doing that, because men are doing it.
Of course they are, on a regular basis.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised, like you said, how many yeses you might get, or at least a little bit more.
That's right.
You know, we're talking about not asking for these raises. What kind of cost does that have over someone's career?
You could lose $1 million of income. $1 million. So it's so important that you ask. And it's also, you know, even applying for the job. A lot of women don't even bother applying. They look at the requirements and they think, oh, I don't meet every single one of those. A man will look and say, oh, I meet 50 of them. They apply.
Wow.
Women have got to get used to putting themselves out there.
Yeah. I think about it, I'm like, I wonder why, you know? I guess as little girls, you're taught to be quiet and to be demure and be, you know, you're not. Back in the day, I do think things are changing.
They're getting better.
The conversations that I have with my daughter, you know, they're so different than I feel like the conversation my mom had with me. And then she did raise two strong girls, you know?
There you go, good.
So I'm hoping Leia will be a little bit stronger than even I was.
We change it up.
Yeah. So what about owning our own business?
You know, as a 30-year entrepreneur, I could tell you this is one of the biggest mistakes we make, and I made it. I paid my people very well, but I did not pay myself initially. And that's what I always advise women entrepreneurs when I speak to them, is pay yourself first. And a very few amount of women actually do that. Only 42% pay themselves. And when they do, they pay themselves $17,400 less than men. Yes, yeah.
Why? Gosh, I'm like, why? Because when you think about it, you have the budget. You know, you're looking at the budget.
Right, I know.
But do they feel like they have to compensate people
They
maybe
want,
more, or
they're
just
more,
happy
I think,
pleasers?
more risk averse probably, and trying to be safer probably. That would be part of it, I think.
All right. So let's talk about communication.
Yeah.
Because that is one of those things. Like, it's funny because even Katie and I kind of was playing there, because I think I knew you were coming on, and that kind of back and forth of like, wow, you're amazing. Wow, you're so smart. A lot of times we apologize for that. We don't say. I was listening to a podcast the other day. It's simple. Thank you.
Yes.
You know, you don't even have to give the compliment back all the time.
That's right. You have to accept it. Or you'll say something to a woman and they'll say, like, I might say, that's a great outfit. And you say, oh, it's been in my closet for years.
Right.
And which diminishes it.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody says you did a great job, you say, thank you.
It was funny, this podcast, he was saying how awkward it is.
Yes.
Like, if you make a comment that's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or oh, you look amazing, those are some of the most awkward moments sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Where a thank you is simple, it's
Clear,
down and dirty, and then
clean.
You can keep it moving.
And then you keep going.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
what words or phrases would you say that we should stick away from?
Well, you know, we have a tendency to soften our language, and we'll say like, I just need a minute of your time, or sorry to interrupt. We're apologizing all the time. It's ridiculous. Or I feel, instead of making a declarative statement and making it really clear.
Okay,
So,
you call that upspeaking?
no, upspeak
Oh,
is
yeah.
like this. Upspeak
Okay.
is like, the statistics are that 20% of women never negotiate. Upspeak would be, the statistics are that 20% of women never negotiate.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like a question at the
Okay.
end. And you know who's really guilty of this, sadly, is our younger women.
Yeah.
They do that upspeak thing a lot, and it undercuts authority.
Okay, so if you know it, speak it with authority.
That's right.
You know, I like to say about me, I'm like, I don't really, if I don't know something, I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
But when I say it, I typically know. Like, I will make
Right.
a bet with someone in a second. I was like, you want to bet? I was like, try me, because I didn't say it unless I know what I'm talking about.
Well, and I, you know, for all my speaking engagements and all my coaching, I rely on research. I research
Right,
everything.
yeah.
I mean, you know, evidence backed. So stand your ground, and you've got the evidence to back it
And
up.
it's okay. And if you don't know, it's just, I don't know. I can find out.
Right.
But you still can say, I can find out, not, I can find out.
Exactly. Let me
Got
find
it.
out. I'll get back to you, and then get back to people on
Yeah,
that.
you know, one thing that you saw Katie and I do during the toss is, you know,
Yes.
being kind to each other, celebrating each other's wins. You know, we're not
Absolutely.
always in competition, ladies.
No, we're not. There's a pie is big enough for
Yeah.
everybody, and you really want to celebrate each other and promote each other. I'm also a big believer in making a list for yourself of all the successes you've had in your life, everything you've learned and overcome, like learning to drive when you didn't think you were going to be able to do that.
Yeah, just simple stuff.
Right, and you have that reference point for success. You put it on your mirror, you look at it. Whenever you're starting to doubt yourself, just remember all the good things that you do, because you do 1,000 of them every day.
Yeah, you know what I call that?
What?
A hype list.
There you go.
And I
like
remember
that.
when I got
like
this
that.
job all those years ago, I went and I wrote all the things that I had
There
done
you
in
go.
my past job, what I had learned, and I was surprised myself. I
Yes.
was like, you are the bomb.
There you go. Well, we got to support
We
ourselves. We
do.
got to encourage
Yeah,
ourselves.
walk
It's
into spaces with
because
that
there's so much
confidence.
negativity around.
All right, so if a woman is watching today, what piece of advice would you say to kind of put into your practice each week? What would you say to do, you know, on a frequent basis? Anything?
Ask.
Okay.
Ask and speak up at every table that you're at. Speak up. Let your voice be heard. Speak with confidence. Ask for what you want, and encourage other women around you.
Yeah.
And increase your fees. You know, whether you're trying to negotiate a salary or you're an entrepreneur, almost every entrepreneur that I know needs to raise their fees.
Yeah, all right, and I just want to tick through this. I think it's good. So speak at every meeting.
Yes.
You know, say something.
That's
Make
right.
sure that it's thoughtful.
Right.
Network purposefully, which we've talked about networking and
That's
how to
right.
make it more natural. Know your value and own your power,
Yes,
ladies.
ma'am.
I love
Own
it.
your power.
And it's not being boastful. It's
No.
not, you know, you can still be humble and
That's
still
right.
hype yourself up.
Right, we have to, because we get put down all the time. So we have to own our own worth and ask for what we deserve.
Yeah. Do you think things are changing when you think about, you know, over the years that you've been doing this?
Some, but you know, I mean, you know, the last couple of years have been tough on women, and you know, I still see all these incredible high achieving women afraid to ask for what they're worth, and it's like, it's time, ladies, it's
That's why you
time.
need a Snowden in your ear. So when you start to doubt yourself, you're like, wait, I remember.
There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Pleasure.
All right, so